Today, we continue on adventure mode in the mod that makes Plants vs Zombies about 8 times harder. Total Death Edition changes almost all plants, zombies, and levels, so I suggest watching the previous parts first. Last time, we only managed to conquer the first 6 levels of World 5. This time, we're back to continue our quest to complete the first half of adventure mode, as I shall remind you that this mod has 10 worlds in total. We are starting from level 5-7, and this level marks the calm after the storm as we finally unlock the Umbrella Leaf to provide some much needed protection against bungee and catapult zombies, both in this level. Just a few Umbrella Leaps can eliminate all the bungees from the sky, making our life so much easier because we won't constantly lose plants throughout the level anymore. Since catapult zombies won't be able to do anything now either, further protecting our gloom shrooms with pumpkins will defend them from ladder zombies as well. We finally have a level where we have a proper counter plant to every zombie, creating a gloom shroom wall that is practically indestructible once we let ladder zombies place ladders on the pumpkins. The added dolphin riders here don't pose much of a threat either because of their low hit points. Just using a lily pad to trigger the jump early every wave is enough for us to kill them with the fume shrooms and gloom shrooms. However, one unlucky event is all it takes to ruin things since Umbrella Leaps are not in the frontmost columns. One backup dancer that was spawned on the 8th column by a bungee ambush is all it takes to destroy our gloom shrooms. I didn't expect this to happen, so I panicked and forgot to plant my lily pad on the water lane, accidentally letting some dolphin riders infiltrate through this defense. Turns out it isn't so impenetrable, is it? I thought this was lost after having half our defense wiped, but we managed to stay alive by killing the rest of the zombies extremely quickly with what gloom shrooms we had left. Killing the zombies off faster activated the rest of the waves quicker, allowing our pool cleaner to take care of 4 waves of dolphin riders at once. This was just enough for us to recover from our losses here. And that's how I managed to beat level 5-7 on our first try. And we unlocked the Marigold, which costs us negative 50 sun. And yes, you're seeing this right. Marigold now costs us less than nothing, because it gives you back 50 sun when you plant it. I mean, it makes sense since puff shrooms cost 0 and it does damage, so something more useless than that would be worth negative sun. Unfortunately, it's not actually that useful because of its slow recharge. But this level is the first introduction to the Gargantuar, a slow-moving zombie with a lot of health, and can now throw 5 imps in a row instead of only 1 upon reaching half their health. And obviously, we don't want them barraging our backline, so spending an instant kill is the best way to stop it. Though Gargantuars may seem intimidating with their extreme amount of hit points, the dancing zombies at this level are way more problematic because of their fast speed and ability to crush like half our defense. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, that was pretty devastating, and it didn't take long for a newspaper zombie to show up and take us out after our roof cleaner is gone. But turns out, there's more to the Gargantuar instead of just the extra imps and outthrows. Each imp now also does infinite damage. That is instantaneous death for any plant that an imp lands on, which is exactly why I moved my chompers towards the back and put some flowers in the front. This time around, we didn't have the same issue against dancing zombies after bringing Pumpkin, which was a good idea to halt them in place for our chompers to munch on. But obviously, the most important upside of using pumpkins is that they group zombies up together for a more efficient doom shroom. Turns out this level is pretty easy once we get the correct loadout of plants that can deal enough damage to Gargantuars while still being able to defend against dancers. Especially with the help of cattails, Gargantuars are a piece of cake to whip through because they don't even have more health than football zombies. Moving on to level 5-9. Now we move on to the penultimate level of World 5, and I must say, there are a lot of different zombies this level. Before showcasing the new zombies, I want to show you guys the last plant we will be getting for a pretty long time. The melon pole in this mod, which lobs a melon every 2 seconds instead of 3 seconds. That is an insane 50% increase to its DPS, which makes it even stronger than in vanilla, and for a good reason, because the zombies in this mod are all way stronger than their vanilla counterparts. And unfortunately, even with an insane 50% increase in damage, melon poles are still trash at dealing with Gargantuars. Infamous for having very poor single target damage for their cost, these melon poles struggle to defend even just one Gargantuar, and it started demolishing our defense. On top of that, their relatively slow attack speed also means that they can't kill imps fast enough before getting insta-killed by them. This is all amplified by how Gargantuars now smash in a 3x1 area similar to all other zombies that crush plants. The amount of damage they do in just one smash is devastating if we're not paying attention by dinging up the plant that is about to be smashed to prevent it from taking out the plants adjacent. The Gargantuars took so long to kill, it was already the second flag, and our defense had been battered so badly that we died pretty promptly against digger zombies that reached our back columns, because they spawn bucketheads on the literal backmost column. That is a good example of why you always need Magnesium against Sticker Zombies. It is quite sad that Melon Pulse, even with a 50% buff, is still too weak against Gargantuars, so I have to resort to using Gloom Shrooms instead. Now, that may seem extremely stupid since we're trying to beat Gargantuars, and you'd probably think that Gargantuars will just smash the Gloom Shrooms before we can kill them. That would be applicable if we were playing the original game, but here, because of their buff to now throw 5 imps instead of just 1, they now stand still for 5 times longer than usual to throw its imps, making it a sitting duck. Kind of counterintuitive, but using Gloom Shroom is now viable against Gargantuars if we pair it with slowing plants. So much for a quote-unquote buff to the Gargantuar. Though this can counter Gargantuars perfectly, Gloom Shrooms are extremely vulnerable against Gatling P Zombies as they deal massive damage to our pumpkins and can render our Gloom Shrooms defenseless against Touhou Zombies. And as you can see, just a few Gatling P Zombies can take out our pumpkins quite easily and delete all our Gloom Shrooms. I get pretty overwhelmed with everything that I have to do to not lose the rest of my defense. I don't even notice that I was about to lose in the water lane. Not my best performance. And here's me thinking after unlocking Umbrella Leaves, I wouldn't have to worry about bungee ambushes anymore, but turns out zombies in the sky are still able to attack before they are deflected. Way to go to instantaneously lose the game to something we have no control over. Even more annoyingly, zombies spawn in the water by bungee ambushes start moving even while in the sky, so we can't even deflect them before they reach the end of the lawn if they're fast. Hence why in my next run, I decided to simply save scum my way out of having to deal with problematic bungee ambushes. That way, I can simply reroll the wave of bungee ambushes if I am ever unlucky instead of having to restart the level all over again for something I have absolutely no control over. And with the luck factor in our favor now, I simply had to defend my Gloom Shrooms from the zombies trying to take it down to beat the level. I also placed an additional Gloom Shroom on the second row to deal with the ton of zombies in the water. The main way to protect Gloom Shrooms is to constantly spam flower pots and sunflowers in the front to tank as much damage as possible and reduce the heat that pumpkins are taking, as well as using Doom Shroom on waves of a lot of Gatling P zombies. Surprisingly, just this change in how I utilize my flower pots and sunflowers past the second flag is enough for us to get past this level without having our Gloom Shrooms destroyed. Turns out this level is actually pretty easy once RNGesus is on our side and it's time to move on to level 5-10. As you may know, level 5-10 is the last level in the original Plants vs Zombies, which is the Dr. Zomboss boss fight. Now, the funny thing is that he is permanently slowed down for the entire fight due to the game rule of slowing down all zombies before the first flag, which makes this entire fight a relative cakewalk compared to anything else in this mod, because there are half the zombies and all the zombies are also slowed down. The only other slightly cursed thing about this fight is that we get some pretty questionable plants. Don't ask me how come we're getting sunflowers in a conveyor belt level, leave your questions for the mod creator instead. Apart from that, there's not much different about Zomboss. I guess the only other difference is that he doesn't spawn anything in the water lane. The rest of the fight is pretty boring because he usually just spawns like one zombie and then goes right back to launching fireballs or ice balls at our defense, making the majority of the fight just doing damage to Zomboss himself. Even when he throws a bunch of Gargantuars at us, they're not really that big of a threat since they're also slowed down anyways. Which is why this is a good time to ask you guys to subscribe. Most people watching my videos are actually not subscribed, so if you've already been watching my videos regularly, make sure to check the button below to see if you're actually subscribed or not. Back to the video. And coming to close this level off, we're done with the 5th world of Total Death Edition. And we've gotten our Silver Sunflower Trophy that we oh so deserved after beating by far the toughest world yet. Or have we really gotten the Silver Sunflower Trophy? Welcome to World 6 out of 10. Well, it's the Zen Garden world as you may see, with start of 50 sun, mushrooms are disabled and flower pots are enabled. In the Zen Garden, we cannot plant without first planting a flower pot. However, we are given no starting flower pots at all, so we have to plant all our own flower pots to prop up our economy. This essentially makes every plant 50 sun more expensive, which is a huge problem for our early game, which now costs us a relative fortune to plant. And yes, incoming is the first new variant of the Conehead Zombie in World 6 and onwards, the Hypno Conehead Zombie. It doesn't seem to do much right now, but just wait for it. The ability of the Hypno Conehead Zombie is that it instantly destroys all plants in the tile immediately in front of itself. Why does this sound familiar? Now, just being able to instantly destroy plants isn't a particularly useful ability if there are no plants for it to destroy. Hence why variant mixing allows there to be an Ender Hypno Conehead Zombie, which as you may expect, yup, destroys all plants in its path while it teleports. I think you can now see why I had to update the game to a version where the Ender Conehead was nerfed. That's not all. World 6 and onwards is considered the elite part of the campaign, and hence almost all levels contain free flags. Actually, I think all levels contain free flags, but we don't know that yet. Moreover, flag zombies on World 6 and onwards gain the new ability to now summon a bungee ambush every 10 seconds. Perfectly balanced as usual. And it took just 2 waves after the first flag for our entire defense to collapse thanks to the Gatling P Coneheads and Jack-in-the-Box zombies. And if you're curious what we can do against Hypno Coneheads that reach too far in our defense, we simply can't. Flower pots get instantly destroyed as if they never even existed if planted on the Hypno Coneheads, meaning we can't even use a squash to defend ourselves. That's just the first taste of the difficulty spike introduced in World 6 after the already quite tough World 5. To begin with, the first plant we're bringing back is the Doomshroom instead of Pumpkin, which will be used to kill the flag zombie the moment it enters the field to prevent any bungee ambushes. Do note that the Zen Garden takes place in the daytime, so we have to use the extra expensive 125 Sun Coffee Bean to wake up our Doomshroom. Now obviously, this means we have fewer wall plants to protect ourselves from the Gatling P zombies, which are getting pretty close to breaking through our defense throughout these waves, but our walnuts are just barely holding on for dear life here, and we're basically on life support at this point against the Jack-in-the-Box zombies as well. But by the second flag, there are just way too many Jack-in-the-Box zombies that all come at once. Needless to say, just 5 Magnet Shrooms are not enough to hold off the onslaught. This resulted in a prompt and utter destruction of our defense by the Gatling P zombies, which if you ask me, this level represents a Botany 1 better than the actual minigame itself at this point. With both failed attempts so far being Gatling P loadouts, I decided to ditch it in favor of trying Fume Shroom instead. And let me tell you, that was a terrible idea because the lower single target DPS of Fume Shroom creates more problems for us than it solves. The Ender Hypno Coneheads essentially wipe out our walls instantly if we decide to use Fume Shroom because of their low damage leading to us not killing them in time. It's also clear that high single target damage is more beneficial against Jack-in-the-Box zombies as we can prevent them from exploding by simply killing them quicker. I then tried to use Gloom Shroom to deal with the Jack-in-the-Box zombies. After all, I haven't tried just using Gloom Shrooms without Magnet Shrooms to counter them, and I think I realized pretty quickly that Gloom Shrooms don't deal enough damage fast enough before getting blown to pieces. Not only that, but the Gatling P zombies make our life a living hell since Pumpkin's low recharge paired with the vast amount of Jack-in-the-Box zombies mean our Pumpkins take way too much damage. The cherry on top is the Ender Hypno Coneheads that can zip past their Gloom Shroom and instantly destroy half our lane. And on top of that, multiple Jack-in-the-Box zombies come every single wave. Often, just one explosion is all it takes to make us lose to Gatling P zombies as we start getting blasted down in free lanes instantly. Seems like not using Magnet Shroom is not a good idea, and we have to go back to the drawing board. So, after those fails, I decided to try back Magnet Shroom, this time with Melon Pole to see if they would do any better. And I also brought in the Giant Walnuts to test if they're better at stalling than Walnuts. But the problems begin to arise after a while. The biggest problem in particular is that Giant Walnuts have a much slower recharge compared to the regular Walnuts, so though having more health, they actually block less damage over time effectively because of how long it takes to replant them. We have to find a good balance between our attacking plants as well as the wall plants we choose to effectively deal with both Jack-in-the-Box and Gatling P zombies. Since we need more wall plants, I took out Twin Sunflower to now include Walnut in their lineup instead, setting up 2 columns of walls before the first flag. And it turns out, doing that was a good idea, because we managed to defend the entirety of the first flag to the second flag without losing any Melon Poles or Magnet Shrooms. Having 2 wall plants is just way better than only 1, because we get that extra layer of protection against Jack-in-the-Box zombies. If one blows up, our defense doesn't get decimated instantly, and we can quickly make repairs to keep ourselves alive. The real question is, how well does this do after the second flag? Well, the amount of Jack-in-the-Box zombies is absolutely marvelous because of RNGs and our Magnet Shrooms get overwhelmed instantaneously with how many of them came at once. It's just impossible to survive because there's not enough space to plant enough Magnet Shrooms to deal with 10 Jack-in-the-Box zombies at once. This becomes a domino chain effect as previous Jack-in-the-Box explosions make future Jacks much likelier to explode deep into our defense and cause much more damage. It took only 1 minute for the zombies to completely decimate what was a completely protected defense and turn it into thin air. I even tried using Gatling P Torchwoods with even more wall plants to hopefully find some success without having to rely on Magnet Shroom, but it just did not work even with Torchwoods providing a significant damage boost to our Peashooters. And of course, I had to give Chompers a try as well, but they pretty much equally sucked as much as Gatling Ps did with Magnet Shrooms. After many failed attempts, I decided to move on from magnet shrooms. You can't just prevent every jack-in-the-box explosion if there's no space to plant the magnet shrooms. So I decided to try some plants I've not used before, Free Peters and Star Fruits, inspired by our loadout used in Unsalted and Brutal Mode EX+. And this combo is actually much better compared to other loadouts we've tried so far. You see, with the way that Star Fruits shoot, these diagonal shots clump up closer to the front and hence the zombies in the front take more damage. With Free Peters to slow down Jack-in-the-Box zombies, this finally makes it enough so that we can take out the Jack-in-the-Box zombies in time, ultimately removing the need for magnet shrooms. Unfortunately, the disadvantage of Star Fruits is pretty obvious. They don't do group damage and also can't target zombies on the backmost columns, and hence this struggles mostly with us having to wait for Gatling P zombies to walk up to the front before we can kill them. Most walnuts are dead even just by the first flag, and we need to constantly plant flower pots and sunflowers to protect ourselves from the Zombotany peas. However, this problem with us having to protect our defense with walnuts is not actually that big of a deal. That's because the second benefit this setup has is it only occupies 3 instead of 5 lanes, as we only need the most efficient lanes for Starfruits and Free Peters to do enough damage to survive. Hence, we can just leave the bottom lane completely dead and it's whatever for us because we're not using that lane for damage anyways. However, doing so has some unforeseen consequences, because if too many Jack-in-the-Box zombies just happen to spawn on an empty lane, we're in for a bad time. And after that, is there really a difference between this setup and any other setup we've tried so far, if it still just dies to one Jack-in-the-Box zombies explosion? But wait, we're getting closer to the end now, and with this strategy, is there a way to possibly survive this level without having any plants alive? That's what I sought to find out in my next attempt, using almost the same loadout, but this time utilizing Ice Shroom, which will be very important later when you see what different we're doing this time around. I farmed much more efficiently in the early game, and we're going to need the spare sun. First, what I did right after the second flag was once again sacrifice my top and bottom lane, as we desperately need to protect our Free Peters and Starfruits as much as possible. And that's all we really needed to do to stall for a couple more waves than in my last run, including using Ice Shroom and Doom Shroom. Then, by using blowovers to constantly slow everyone down and do some damage, this keeps our damage at a reasonable level to kill off the Jack-in-the-Box zombies. But the inevitable will come when the many Gatling P zombies build up and there's just no way to stop all of them at once. But that's fine, because now we have a way to survive with literally 0 attacking plants left on the board. Who said we need a defense to beat these zombies? Just spam Blover. Yup, that's right, we just needed to survive until the penultimate wave of the level. With no more Jack-in-the-Box zombies present, all we need to do is to Blover stall the whole board, then wait until the final wave to Doomshroom the last of the Jack-in-the-Box zombies. Now the solution is obvious since we're on the final wave, as we have all our lawnmowers intact from defending off the horde before this, and we just need to stall long enough to kill off the last few stray zombies that remain. And holy moly, how do we just beat that level? This was just the first level of World 6, and things are already looking pretty insane, with more insanity to ensue. I certainly hope that the next level is not as hard as this. There are no more plants to unlock after Melonpolt, so our options will be the same for the rest of the Adventure Mode, hence we should expect worse to come. And here we go again. Conehead Peashooter Zombies make their debut in World 6, and they can spawn on the first wave of the level, immediately attacking our sun producers. There's no way to defend all 5 lanes with so little sun, so we'll have to switch up our sunflower planting strategy from planting column to lane by lane. The early game was pretty easy to get through using this strategy, as we have previously done this to beat level 3-8, which also had Conehead Peashooter Zombies. However, the problem this time is that football zombies are in the level as well, and they throw a wrench into our plan for using Gatling Peas. Their fast speed allows them to rush into the front of the horde and protect the other zombies with massive hit points, as I shall remind you, each has the health of a Gargantuar or even more than that if it's a giant football zombie. These caused some serious issues for us early on, but we were still able to stabilize with some instant use plants. However, Gatling Peas fall short past the second flag, where now every wave at this point has 3 or more football zombies, and if we can't kill them fast enough, the Hypno Coneheads from behind will creep up and instantly destroy our walnuts, rendering our defense completely vulnerable to the Peashooter Zombies from behind. It all crumbles very quickly because there's no more sun to plant more walnuts to protect our Gatling Peas from all the incoming Zombotany peas now. So instead of using Gatling Peas, I decided to bring back the same plants we used in the last level. You see, Gatling Peas and Repeaters are straight shooters, so we can't kill any zombies that are behind another zombie, but using Starfruit, they attack diagonally. So, they can hit Hypno Coneheads even if they're behind a football zombie, which essentially solves the problem of football zombies that rush to the front and protecting the more dangerous Hypno Coneheads in the back. The best part of this setup is that it outputs more damage than conventional Gatling piece strategies, while simultaneously using less space and also being cheaper to set up. It's a no-brainer to pick this strategy over using Gatling piece spam or even chopper spam. We even have the space to stock up on spare ice shrooms while still having more sunflowers than before. And similar to the previous level, we can once again sacrifice the sunflower lanes on the top and bottom to spend more walnuts in the free middle lanes once the second flag comes. This is equally beneficial in this level for us to plant more walnuts to block off Peashooter Zombies and protect our actual defense to ensure that we can survive up until the last few waves. But unlike the first level though, we won't need to sacrifice our whole board because football zombies apply less pressure than Jack-in-the-Box zombies on our walnuts. This meant that the powerful defense was simply enough to defend off everything throughout the level. In comparison, this level was much easier, so that concludes it, and we're swiftly moving on to the next one. And for the third level in a row, I went in with the same loadout again with only one adjustment this time, using pumpkin instead of walnut. Compared to the last two, this level is much simpler as there are no pea-shooting zombies. Since the fast cooldown of the walnut is not a consideration anymore with no zombotany piece to block, Pumpkin's extra space is much more beneficial here to give us a bit more wiggle room in our defense. And of course, we can't forget that they transform into a squash upon death, which makes it great into clumps of high health zombies. Plus, they give us a freeze effect occasionally, which is better than the fast recharge of the walnut because of the high amount of health the walnut zombies have, which have no other abilities other than being a load of health. Since Starfruits did well against Jack-in-the-Box zombies, it is no surprise that they can also kill off Pogo zombies very quickly before they can trample any of our plants with their high damage. On top of that, we are already using Blowover to slow zombies down, so the balloon zombies in this level get killed for free as well. Now after all of this, the only problem we have left is dealing with the massive dense waves from between the second and third flag, which we can easily get past by using up our stocked up ice shrooms from the earlier waves and freezing all the zombies in place for Starfruits to rip through. Just like that, we managed to beat the level pretty easily with the same strategy again. Now, if you're worried that the next few levels are just going to be Starfruits and Free Peters again, fear not, because this level is about to shake everything up. Welcome to level 6-4, or as I would call it, the most painful level in the history of Plants vs Zombies. Not because it's badly designed, but it will mentally hurt your brain while playing this level. So, what's stopping Starfruits with Free Peters from working again? Well, they're Zombonis, and our firepower is nowhere near enough to kill these guys before they start squishing all our plants. All our usual stalling tools like pumpkins, blowovers, and ice shroom do nothing against them because it's a damn vehicle. And the next thing you know is the jalapeno zombies start incinerating rows of plants at once, and guess what's even worse? The squash zombies in this mod give you seizures when it squashes. That's quite literally the squash zombies' ability, which is to shake your game window. And if you were to take guesses on why I call this level the most painful level, you see, the amount of squash zombies in this level is horrendous. They all have bucketheads now, making it practically impossible to kill every single one of them with attacking plants, if we even have any left. I hope you enjoy watching this because every squash zombie is one more seizure and this will go on for the rest of the level. And I guess if it wasn't obvious enough, the blue squash zombies are simply faster moving versions of the normal squash zombies, still causes seizures. But the problem is still, if we want to kill Zombonis, just one instant kill is not going to cut it because they have as much health as Gargantors do in this mod. Alternatively, in certain scenarios, our instant kills don't even work. I'll be first to tell you that trying to use attacking plants in this level is an extremely stupid idea. The jalapeno zombies in this mod have an extremely short fuse just like the Jack-in-the-Box zombies, and this short fuse gives us close to no chance to defend against them. Watch as this jalapeno zombie that hasn't even walked past one tile incinerating our entire row of plants. Perfectly fair and balanced and meant to be counterable, shall I say. Even after an instant kill, Zombonis can still make it all the way to the fourth column before finally dying to our chompers. But in the next wave, 2 more Zombonis come again, and without instant kills, this is now completely lost, and the jalapeno zombies in the other lane start incinerating even more plants if they haven't already done so. This level is so stupid, I don't even know what to say at this point. If none of our defense can live against the jalapeno zombies, the best solution is to ditch all attacking plants and bring only instant use plants. Some of you may remember this from Brutimo EX Plus as the dumb strategy, and I call it that just because it's dumb that this is even a legitimate way to play a tower defense game. Despite it being called a dumb strategy, it isn't simple to pull off as it's not just planting instant kills off cooldown. We have to efficiently stall out each wave by leaving the zombies alive as long as possible to maximize our stun income and let our instant kill plants come back from cooldown more. This is why I had to maximize stalling the early game to plant all 4 ice shrooms in the back. By chaining these ice shrooms one by one after the first flag, we are delaying the jalapeno zombies as much as possible and grouping up more zombies together, and we'll use instant kills to kill them only when necessary or optimal. But where are all the zombonis? Well, this strategy simply relies on the fact that zombonis spawn 3 times less often in this mod, and hence we can just use 2 instant kills to take care of them if they spawn. I mean, just looking at the first run here, you can see why I think that this strategy could work because there was only 1 zomboni for the entire duration between the first and second flag. Despite this level being theoretically easy to beat with perfect play, any single mistake is prone to cost us the entire level almost instantaneously. Just because I did not spend my Doom Shroom to eliminate the flag zombie on the second flag to greet a little bit more value out of my Doom Shroom, I gave the flag zombie the time to spawn a bungee ambush which had a giant football zombie that we had no way of blocking, and it costs us the game immediately afterwards. Since we lost that last attempt after not having a plan to block off units, this time I brought in Planter, which yes, it does cost a lot, but it has received the full rework. With significantly increased health, Planter now pulsates a strong shockwave around itself every 8 seconds, capable of insta-killing basic zombies and can kill coneheads in just 2. Now, as you may expect, this plant is pretty similar to the Gloom Shroom because of its attack radius, but it's significantly more pricey at 500 Sun. However, the benefit is that it costs only 1 slot to use as opposed to the Gloom Shrooms 2. But the main reason why I actually wanted to use the Plantern is not for its attack, but because upon being eaten to death, Plantern explodes and instantly kills everything around itself as well, so we can use it like an Explodo Nut, a very expensive one at that. It's really not that useful though, especially considering Hypno Coneheads can instantly destroy them and thereby preventing it from exploding in the first place. So Doom Shroom is still the only reliable we'll have to use to kill off the masses of zombies at once in later waves. Or so I thought until the jalapeno zombie incinerated it because it can do that as well. This level is just really not fun when you have to constantly fight against RNG with whether your plant is about to get incinerated or not. And even with us using the most low risk plants against jalapeno zombies which are instant kills, we're still getting screwed over. Oh, but that's not the only zombie that can screw our instant kills over.
Bye, have a great time!
Well, having fun trying to not have our Doom Shrooms get incinerated, while also trying to not have radioactive zombonis dodging our other instant kills. This level is honestly just something else. And by the way, this only gets more stupid the later the waves go, where more jalapeno zombies show up. Every lane has a jalapeno zombie or 2, which basically makes it impossible to plant anything safely. You want to use an ice shroom? Yeah, goodbye. And here you go. Here's a few more jalapeno zombies the next wave just to make your life a bit more difficult. Just to remind you, we're using only instant kills and our plants are still getting killed. Like, this is just... actually, I don't even know anymore, man. Though Plantern took out a lot of the brown coat zombies in the early game, it didn't really accomplish any other goals later on when there were tons of Hypno Coneheads. So, I decided to try out Potato Mine instead as another instant use plant. Unfortunately, as you may remember, they were heavily nerfed in this mod, meaning they can no longer kill jalapeno zombies in one go. More importantly, even after using a Potato Mine on a Zomboni and another instant kill, the Zomboni would still be alive anyway and require another instant kill. So it's utterly pointless to use Potato Mine altogether because it kills nothing but Conehead zombies. That is pretty much worth no value to us since it's already free to kill Conehead zombies whenever we spend Doom Shroom or just spam Blover. But even with the much worse Potato Mines, we make it further than our previous few attempts as I was getting better at efficiently using my instant kills on Zombonis. Practicing this level repeatedly gave us a way better chance of beating it as we were getting the timings down to a T and learning how to efficiently use our lawnmowers on Zombonis instead of random stray zombies. Just playing slightly more efficiently actually could have made this a win, but my jalapeno was just on cooldown 1 second before the Zomboni got to the last column and now it's there. I can't plant my jalapeno anymore as flower pots get instantly crushed. That was quite the unfortunate way to go out because we definitely could have survived the next 2 Zombonis with a Doom Shroom and Cherry Bomb as well, which would have brought us to the final wave. With no reason to continue trying Potato Mine out, I switched back to the Plantern for its on-death explosion. Though it doesn't work if there are any Hypno Coneheads, it's still more useful than just killing Coneheads and basic zombies on a singular tile. Surprisingly, it gets quite a lot of value if we keep looking out for the small windows of opportunity where there are no Hypno Coneheads. It was really tricky to use because I had to keep tabs on all the zombies and constantly check that our Plantern wouldn't go to waste to a jalapeno zombie. And certainly, not every plantain is going to be planted in ideal circumstances, as we want to maximize our value from them against Zombonis in particular, which are the main threat. The time frame where we can damage the Zomboni can be changed by it changing lanes, or a Jalapeno Zombie could just instantly incinerate the plantain. A high risk, high reward play that rewards precision, and mostly reliant on RNG if I'm being honest. Speaking of RNG though, that's what makes me hate this level. We only need a 3-second time frame to activate a Doomshroom, and it's still possible that it gets incinerated suddenly by just chance. This level was poorly designed in the sense that I could play perfectly and still lose just because of the random chance that a Jalapeno Zombie explodes. Now, it's just completely lost because there's no way I can clear out these brown coat zombies in time while still defending the next onslaught. But you could say that luck elements test our adaptability in tough situations. Just like in this run, I set up a whole plan to defend everything with my Doomshroom and other instant kills, but a Zomboni can just dodge my Jalapeno and screw my original plan over. Without knowing what to do now, I panicked and wasted a flower pot, which then quickly led to us not being able to kill the flag zombie and spawn a pole vaulting zombie in lane 5. Just this sequence alone brought us to the defeat screen, and now in retrospect, I could have paused the game to think about what to do next, but I didn't. But I just want to beat the level without having luck stand in my way, because my instant use plans are getting constantly screwed over by Jalapeno Zombies igniting at the wrong time or Zomboni switching lanes. So I decided to use safe scumming again, which will save me some time so I don't need to play the early game all over again if I lose. To make it a bit easier on myself as well, I decided to slow down the game speed by half again, which will let me make more precise plays, and it certainly did something to help because I made it all the way to the second flag while losing only one lawnmower on my first try. Now, all is going well so far, but then... Okay. Do not kill it. Please don't explode now. What the heck? Oh, game crashed. Somehow. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, the game decided to do a massive troll and crash the game when we used the squash on the Zomboni. The funny part was when I rebooted the save up from the second flag again, as I had made a checkpoint there, every time I used the squash on the Zomboni, the game would just instantly destroy itself and exit. I don't know how this managed to happen, but I tried for another time and it still crashed, so I had no choice but to go back to the first flag. And since I'm back here now, I decided to optimize the waves before the second flag. So I restarted quite a few times to make sure my instant kills weren't going to waste, for example, against a Zomboni that switched lanes, and not wasting my lawnmowers before the second flag to keep all 5 of them alive. It was pretty cumbersome to get a run where I wouldn't lose a single lawnmower before the second flag. I had to make optimal placements for all our instant kills to land on only Zombonis and nothing else, while not dying to the rest of the zombies. But I managed to make it to the second flag with all mowers alive in just 20 minutes. I'd say it was worth it. Then, for the second flag, it also took quite a few rerolls to make sure that the 3 Zombonis in this wave would clump up together so that we could spend just 1 Cherry Bomb and 1 Doomshroom to take them all out. But then after that wave, I didn't really bother playing that optimally, and I just started letting my lawnmowers go against the Zombonis. This is because using lawnmowers completely negates the issue of Jalapeno Zombies, as they can't take out our lawnmowers. And yeah, without the luck factor of Jalapeno Zombies involved, surprise surprise, we managed to beat this section on our first try. Now I just need to spam Blower to kill everything off to reach the final wave, and by that time, all my instant kills were back from recharge, making this a victory for us. Not too bad, was it? And that's it for this episode. Next time, we will continue World 6, and the levels are now getting seriously tough to beat. Spoilers, there's one level that is literally impossible, but that's for next time. I know it took longer than usual for this episode to release, but hopefully you've enjoyed the longer than usual video today. Thank you channel members for supporting this channel, but for now, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time.